Hi everybody, this is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1, Book 2, and Playing Solo Jazz Piano. You know, if you buy all three, it makes the perfect holiday gift. That's just what I've been told. That's what people are kind of saying. So there's your tip. And I actually want to cover today some material from Playing Solo Jazz Piano, which is about thinking orchestrally. So many of the great pianists who I've talked to, studied with, talking about solo piano, think about playing the piano as though they're playing an orchestra. And we could just talk about this very broadly. Obviously, you know, as we play things in the upper register, they have a different sound than playing things in the lower register, etc. in the middle. But I want to take it somewhat literally here, because if I think about different instruments or sections of instruments within an orchestra, it kind of prompts me to play differently at the piano. And that can be really useful as you're trying to come up with a unique arrangement or a unique approach for a piece. So today I want to give you some of the prompts that I like to use, including thinking about different sections and even making one of my special tricks I'll share with you, because I trust you, YouTube, which is I call it the additive arrangement, where I add one instrument at a time. So I'll show that to you at the end. And I thought today we could use the tune Someone to Watch Over Me, obviously a jazz classic standard by George and Ira Gershwin. We'll do it in E flat. Okay, so that's kind of how I would generally treat that A section if I'm not doing much else. But let's start thinking about some members of the orchestra. So let's take a string section. When I think of a string section, I'm thinking everything's very legato. I'm thinking, instead of just thinking of chord melody, right? You can see my left hand's kind of holding mostly as my right hand plays the melody. I'm thinking that each of the different parts of the chord are going to now become a melody, because the cellos want to move, right? And the violas want to move, and the second violins want to move. So I'm going to think, try to move everything melodically, really legato, with a nice, big, rich sound. So maybe something like... So I'm thinking about putting the melody into different parts of the piano, just sometimes the viola line would come out or the cellos would come out, and then subdividing the sections together too, so that maybe the cellos and violas are playing together and the first and second violins are playing something together. So that's kind of fun. I also like thinking about a string section plus a soloist. And let's do a trumpet soloist. So a very big, bold sound. So the soloist is going to play the melody, and then the string section is going to respond. So... very different, but really fun. one of the fun things about strings is that, of course, right now I'm imagining them playing arco, bowing, but they can also play pizzicato, plucking, and that's just going to be a totally different experience. So let's run the same experiment where the soloist will have a trumpet soloist, but beneath him is going to be pizzicato strings. So now I'm going to play everything staccato, and I'm going to imagine kind of trading in between sections. Also change completely, depending on whether the soloist is like I said, it could be a trumpet. To me, maybe I approach it slightly differently if it's a trumpet versus a wind, like a flute or a clarinet, but they're going to be kind of similar and they're definitely in similar range. But, if it's like a trombone or a cello, then the melody has to be lower. So, that's just that input is going to give you a completely different result. Let's see, some other ones that I find really useful. Thinking about the harp, right? The harp is a really very specific sound and a very specific role. It's kind of does these sweeping arpeggios, which are just going to be the same octave after octave. Kind of fun. It gives it a very different texture. Did I overdo the harp? Yeah, probably. But, I'm demonstrating. That's the point. What about like the glockenspiel? The glockenspiel is often doubled with other instruments. Could be by strings, could be by winds, but it's got that really pingy kind of belly sound. And I would usually kind of represent it by playing the same note in 3 octaves with a really pingy touch. So I could find some ways. And I'm going to put in some timpani now. What if I use the timpani and the glockenspiel as the main thing in my arrangement? And timpani, of course, you could have multiple timpani, but the classic thing for the timpani to do is just to go between the root and the fifth. So. So that's a very simple rhythm with the timpani, just basically alternating every quarter note. But I certainly could. there's the harmony, the harp, I'm sorry. I can't talk and play. It's really fun. I'm having a good time. It's really cool. Another thing that happens a lot in orchestras. So let me take some more notes. So we did some glockenspiel. We did some timpani. One thing that happens a lot in orchestras that doesn't happen so much on the piano, although we certainly can, is tremolos. Spelling error. It's actually always really interesting to look at Debussy's scores because he often has different instruments tremoloing at different rates, which just kind of gives this weird strobe-like effect in the orchestra. I'm sure strobe isn't the right way to say it, but... Could be a bigger tremolo. Imagine like horns. Horns are kind of often playing in dyads or something like that. Dyads just mean 2-note chords. There's that harp. So that kind of thing can be really fun. So I've mainly left out the winds, and I want to show you thinking about the winds in terms of an additive arrangement. To me, the winds are harder. This is just me personally. The winds kind of intimidate me as an arranger, maybe because I played some violin in school, but I've never really played a wind instrument. But I love doing this with the wind. So an additive arrangement, I'm going to start with just one voice playing the melody. So let's think of it as, how about an oboe? And it's just going to start just lonely. Imagine a spotlight, on stage. And then maybe a bassoon comes in beneath. And then maybe a cello. And then suddenly it's a quartet. And then here come all the strings all at once. So, that additive arrangement, adding, starting with one lone wind player, making it into duet, then a trio, then a quartet, and then burgeoning into that whole big arrangement, that is a really fun way in a really compelling way, because it kind of draws the listener in, because they're thinking, just one voice, what's going to happen? Where's it going to go? And you get to kind of plot what your big arrival is going to be. So a bunch of these kind of examples are in Playing Solo Jazz Piano, if you are interested. But I hope that you're having a wonderful holiday season. And thanks for your likes, comments, subscriptions, all that. I'll see you next time here. Bye-bye.